Good morning. Buenos dias. It is an honor to be here. Thank you, Stephanie, for your kind introduction, and more importantly, thank you for your leadership, not only here, but back home in Pueblo. It's an honor to be with you today. It's an honor to be here with every one of you. I'm looking in the audience. I see a lot of serial activists out there from around this country, and I want to say thank you. We've worked together on so many issues in so many communities, and you do great work. So I want to say thank you, whether it was minimum wage, whether it was paid leave, whether it was the ports dispute earlier this year on the West Coast, whether it's been the discussions we're having on trade, which, reasonable people can differ, and you have been involved in those, and we appreciate the input we've gotten. And so I'm very, very grateful for your partnership, because you are a critical component of how we're building the middle class in this country. As many of you know, I had the privilege of serving as a local elected official in Montgomery County, Maryland, which is right near, I bike into work every so often, about 9 miles from the Capitol. And I remember local government very well, because I know as well as anyone that local government is where the rubber hits the road. And I know that state and local leadership drives innovation, because frankly, Washington doesn't make a habit of leading forward, notwithstanding our president's efforts. And so we often work with states and cities around this country. And so we thank you for that service. And I made a decision early on in my career to devote my career to what I think is one of the most basic fundamental responsibilities of government, which is creating access and expanding access to opportunity. You heard from my good friend Julian Castro yesterday. He talked about HUD as the Department of Opportunity. In reality, all of us are in the opportunity business, not only in the federal government, but all of you. And I had the privilege of serving in 3 different federal agencies over the course of the last 20 years. And in connection with my immediate prior job at the Department of Justice, we got some news this week that was directly related to the issue of opportunity and government responsibility. Just a couple days ago, a federal court refused to allow Maricopa County to absorb itself of liability for Sheriff Arpaio's discriminatory policing practices. I was very excited to work on that case. And this ruling should be a reminder that this nation will not stand for depriving any person of their civil rights. The arc of the moral universe does indeed bend toward justice, and this week I think it bent a little bit further in Arizona. And I'm proud of the work of the Department of Justice on this case, and I will continue to make sure that that case moves forward, even though I'm not there anymore. And when the president asked me to come to the Labor Department, there were some who wondered whether and how my experience in the Civil Rights Division prepared me to be Labor Secretary. And here is how. The mission of the Civil Rights Division and the mission of the Department of Labor are effectively the same. We both aim to create a nation where every person can reach for their highest and best dreams. We both aim to ensure that unnecessary barriers don't stand in the way of the person's pursuit of happiness and opportunity. Back in February of 2009, during his first address before a joint session of Congress, the president talked about how you don't need to hear another list of statistics to know that our economy is in crisis. It's the worry that you wake up to and the source of sleepless nights. It's the job you thought you'd retired from, but now you have lost. The business you built your dreams upon that is now hanging in the thread. The college acceptance letter your child had to put back in the envelope. The impact of the recession is real, and it is everywhere. And the North Star for this administration is strengthening and growing the middle class. And back in 2009, and you know it because many of you were already in the front lines, and you know that the 3 months before January of 2009, the economy hemorrhaged 2 million jobs. Unemployment was skyrocketing. The auto industry had been brought to its knees. The foreclosure crisis was touching all of your communities. But in that night on Capitol Hill, the president made a promise to the American people. He said, "We will rebuild, we will recover, and the United States of America will emerge stronger than before. The weight of this crisis will not determine the destiny of this nation." And we have come a long way, thanks in no small measure to the partnership between the federal government, state government, local government, thanks to the resilience of the American people and American businesses, and thanks to your stick-to-itiveness. You look at the last 63 consecutive months, we've seen 63 consecutive months of private sector job growth to the tune of 12.6 million jobs. There are 5.4 million job openings right now. In the depths of the Great Recession, there were roughly 7 job seekers for every job opening. Now there are about 1.7 or 1.6. I went to law school because I was bad at math, but I'd rather be competing against one person for a job than against 6 people for a job. Last year, unemployment fell in every single state. The first time that's happened in 30 years. Exports are at an all-time high. 1.8 million new export-related jobs have been created since 2009, and these jobs pay on average up to 18% more than other jobs. Consumer confidence is near a 7-year high. And so we're seeing progress. The Latino unemployment rate in the depths of the Great Recession was 13%. Now it's roughly half of that. The high school graduation rate for Latino students is up 11% since 2007, 2008. And since 2000, the dropout rate for Latinos has declined by more than half. That is real progress. And for those of you on school boards, I say thank you. For those of you in local elected office, I say thank you, because it's been your leadership that has brought this about. Since 2008, the rate of college enrollment among young Latinos has risen by 45%. That's a real accomplishment. From 2012 to 2013, roughly a million fewer Latinos were living in poverty. Prior to the passage of the ACA, Latinos were among the highest rates of uninsurance, as you know. Since enrollment started, 4.2 million Latino adults gained coverage, and the uninsurance rates have dropped over 12% among Latinos. That is real progress. And it's not just about data. It's about people. People like Victor, a person I met in Salt Lake City, Utah. Victor is a small business owner. He's a hairdresser. He couldn't continue his business because he was getting sick. And because he couldn't afford his health insurance, he couldn't pay the bills. And so he had to slow down his work. And he was in dire straits until the Affordable Care Act passed, when he was able to get access to insurance for $55 a month. And as he said to me when I went out and met him, the Affordable Care Act was the difference between life and death for me, because he was diagnosed with kidney cancer. And he would not be on this planet but for the Affordable Care Act. And that is who we are as a nation, making sure that everybody has access to health care security. And so we're making progress. We're moving in the right direction, but there's no one at the White House, there's no one at the Labor Department, there's no one in this administration, and I'm confident there's no one in this room who's spiking the football. Because for all the progress we've made, you know there are a lot of boats that have yet to be lifted. There are a lot of people still looking for work. There are so many people who are working and struggling to make ends meet. There's no dignity in working a 40-hour work week and getting your food at the food pantry, and all too many people are doing that. There are working people in this country making the choice between a gallon of milk and a gallon of gas, making the choice between a bottle of formula for their baby or a bottle of milk for their baby, and you shouldn't be making those choices. Too many people, like a woman named Roberta, a 71-year-old woman, a hero of mine whom I met last summer in Houston. Roberta has been a janitor for more than 30 years and struggles every day to keep her head above water. She helped organize her co-workers for higher wages, but 30 years later, she's making $8.85 an hour. That's simply not enough. That is not the dignity of work, because the dignity of work is that when you work a full-time job, you should not have to live in poverty. And that is the dignity of work. You know, we all succeed only when we all succeed. And that's why the president continues to pursue a bold agenda to strengthen the middle class. That's why he's redoubling his efforts in the last 19 months of this administration to make sure this economy works for everyone. I got a sign in my desk in my office, 571 days till the weekend, January 20th, 2017. And every day until the weekend, we're going to be working our tails off on behalf of working families to build a better America. And we're going to do it with you. We have a lot of unfinished business. And one thing I know is that we will finish more business if we continue to work in partnership on so many different issues, including the issues of wage fairness and benefit fairness. I travel around the world and I talk about the issues of paid leave. I meet people day in and day out who gave birth to their child and they can't enjoy that remarkable moment in their lives because they don't know how they're going to pay the bills. I hear so often from the father who works 2 jobs so he can make a better living for his son. I hear too often from the mother who cries as she puts her child on the school bus in the morning because that child is sick. She knows she shouldn't be putting him on the bus, but she has no alternative because if she skips work, she won't be paid. We hear so many stories like this, and you know it too because we're a nation that takes great pride in valuing both hard work and family. But we're not doing a very good job of supporting working families. And that is why the president has fought so hard to raise the minimum wage, to make sure we're doing everything in our power, whether it's an upcoming overtime rule, making sure minimum wage applies to federal contractors, and our partnerships with you at state and local governments to make sure that people who work a fair day's work get a fair day's wage. I want to say thank you to all of you. 7 million people got a raise this year in January because of state and local initiatives to raise the minimum wage. That's on you, and we are so appreciative of those efforts. That's why we're actively supporting state and local initiatives to expand paid leave, because we see innovation occurring in places like California, in places like Connecticut, in places like Oregon, and in state and local governments across this country. And so much of the issue of paid leave disproportionately touches Latinos, because Latino workers are less likely than other workers to have paid leave. Only 43% of Latinos have some form of paid leave compared to 61% of non-Latinos. And as you know, the lower the wage you make, the higher the probability it is that you don't have paid leave, even though you need it so desperately. You know, in 1964, about 40% of mothers with kids under 5 participated in the labor force. Now it's more than 60%. Roughly a third of Latino children live with only one parent, making access to leave even more critical. But only 12% of private sector workers have access to paid leave. We are living in the modern family world, but we got to get away from these Leave It to Beaver rules. And we need your help, and we appreciate your leadership. And earlier this week, we announced a grant program for $1.25 million to help state and local governments implement and analyze paid leave. I hope you will apply. I encourage you to take up the cause because it is so critically important. And so we'll continue to work in partnership there. And we will continue to work in partnership on the upskilling front. Because you know what? I mentioned earlier on, 5.4 million job openings right now. I have the same conversation with employers everywhere I go, and it goes like this. Tom, I'm bullish about the future. I want to grow my business, and I need to make sure that people walking through the door applying for jobs have the skills to succeed. And working together with you, we are building and rebuilding the skills superhighway. This is an Eisenhower moment. Eisenhower brought us the physical infrastructure in this country, our interstate highway systems, and we are working together to build the skills superhighway with on-ramps and off-ramps. On-ramps for apprenticeship. Apprenticeship is the other college, except without the debt. Apprenticeship has application in the skilled trades. It has application in IT. It has application in healthcare. It has application in cybersecurity. It has application in logistics. In short, it has application in virtually every sector. And that earn while you learn model has worked so long and so often in other countries. It's not a coincidence. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why the youth unemployment rate in Germany is less than half of what it is here, because they invest in apprenticeship. And we can do so, and we are doing so. And the president is leading that effort. And we're working in partnership with all of you. We can expand apprenticeship to the IT context, just as Mayor Nutter has done in Philadelphia, taking kids who have fluency with gadgets and making them into IT professionals through apprenticeship. So there is so much that we can do, but we need to make higher education more affordable, because my parents taught me the education dividend. And you are all in this room focused on education to a T. I'm the youngest of 5, and my father 41 years ago passed away of a heart attack. He worked himself to an early grave, making sure his kids could get access to education. I know you have similar stories, and he did so because he understood, like we all do, the education dividend. And that is why the president has been calling for access to free community college for all of those who can't afford it. We need your help on this. In the late 20th century, or in the late 19th century, there was a debate about whether we should make K-12 education free to everyone. And there were these people who said, that makes no sense. We shouldn't do that. Why do people need more education? Well, I don't need to go through that. They were darn wrong. I use the word darn because I know we're in mixed company and there are a lot of cameras in the back room. But you know what? We're having this same conversation again. We know that for so many jobs, a high school degree isn't enough. We need more. And so as we prepare that skills infrastructure, the skills superhighway, help us fortify the skills superhighway by making 2-year community college accessible to everybody. You shouldn't have to have all the money in the world to get a good education. And we need to build on-ramps and off-ramps for populations that have significant barriers to opportunity. I am so proud of the work we do in the area of making sure that returning citizens can have access to opportunity, because the best strategy for reducing recidivism is to get someone skills and access to a good job. That's the thing we do. That's what you're doing at local government. And I'll tell you one thing we did in local government in Montgomery County. We put a one-stop center in the county jail. Because you know why? If we train people behind the jail, it makes the jail safer. It makes inmates more employable, and it creates win-win opportunities. And it's so successful that we just gave out grants to something like 30 different jurisdictions to do the same thing. So we need to build those on-ramps and off-ramps for people who are returning from prison. We need to build on-ramps to that skills superhighway for people with disabilities, because as we celebrate the 25th anniversary of the ADA this July, the principal unfinished business is employment. I meet very few people who say, Tom, I want to become a taxpayer. I meet people with disabilities all the time who tell me just that, and we need to help them. We need on-ramps for veterans who are doing great work for our nation and come home and deserve to be treated with that dignity that they have earned. And that's what we're doing. And so our Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act is catalyzing this partnership. It's helping us build the skills superhighway. And I've been to many of your communities, and I am so grateful for the work that we're doing together. Opportunities abound, and this stuff is not partisan. Senator Scott from South Carolina, Senator Booker from New Jersey have a bipartisan bill to allow for tax credits for companies that take up apprenticeship. There's bipartisan opportunities in this space. Let's take advantage of it, because you know what? The education dividend is undeniable. The challenges are so critically important. And so before I wrap up, there's one more piece of unfinished business that I want to talk about, because it's something that I believe, when I talk to the president, I think it's one of his, if not the biggest disappointment for him. And that is the failure of the Republican leadership last year to pass comprehensive immigration reform. We have unfinished business there. I will never forget an event we did in Minnesota. It was an event with about 20 young women. They were about 18 years old. They were all single moms. We were trying to upskill them, to give them the skills so that they could compete. And after all the cameras left in this room, the president had a conversation with these young women. And this was one of those days where I said to myself again, I can't believe they pay me to do this job. And he asked them, first of all, he told them the following. My mother was your age when she had me. So one of you in this room may be the mother of the next president of the United States someday. You can do anything you want. That's what he told them. And then in the Q&A, the first question he got was, what's your biggest disappointment so far? Or if you could wave a magic wand and do one and only one thing, Mr. President, what would it be? And it took him a nanosecond to say, comprehensive immigration reform. Because, like you, he has looked so many people in the eye who are living in the shadows. So many people in the eye who want that basic fairness. So many people in the eye who keep trying, those 600,000 dreamers, the mothers, the abuelitos, the abuelitas, seeking that access to opportunity. And I've been very proud to be part of his immigration team. I was so proud the day when he announced the deferred action for the dreamers. I was so proud to be in the front lines when we sued Arizona and Alabama and all those other states that passed those really, really ill-advised immigration laws. I was very proud when the president said on January, I was very proud when we were given the following instruction when we took office. You know what? Joe Arpaio may be a sheriff, but they ought to know that there's a new sheriff in town here in Washington, and we need to do something about it. And you go out and do something about it. And I was so proud and hopeful last fall when the president issued the deferred action executive order. And we will continue to fight that. And we will continue to fight for comprehensive immigration reform. But we know we can't do it without your help. This is an economic imperative. It's a moral imperative. It's a family imperative. It is a national security imperative. And make no mistake about it, it is a critical piece of unfinished business. And we ain't giving up. And I know you're not giving up. Because you know what? We fall down every so often, but as the civil rights song says, we get up. And that is my segue to the last thing I'd like to ask you about. I come here, and I've been here last year, I've been here this year, and I'll come every year you invite me, Arturo. And I may get disinvited after a while because you'll be sick of me. But I come here with a chronic sense of optimism because I get to meet people who are ordinary people who do extraordinary things, overcoming the odds. I met a woman recently in Connecticut who just gave birth to her daughter. And because she didn't have enough money, she's a school bus driver. And she takes her daughter, her newborn, on the bus while she was doing her route. Because that was her only alternative. People like her, people like us, Roberta, they inspire me. But I'll tell you who else inspires me. People like your president, Alex. Because only in America can people grow up in humble means, but get instilled those steel values of hard work, fairness, and opportunity, and become so much. And that's why I have such regard for Alex Padilla. That's why I have such regard for so many people in this room that I have met. And that's why I have so much optimism about our future. Because you all could be going out there making a ton of money, doing a lot of other things. The opportunity costs of what you're doing are enormous. But the non-monetary rewards of what you do every day are priceless. And that's why you continue to be in this business. And that's what we continue to need. Because, I was down in Selma earlier this year with the president, and Selma was about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And in Selma, the president said one thing. He said, the most important word in a democracy is a one-syllable word, we. It is amazing what we can do when we build coalitions, when we come together around a common vision of opportunity, it is amazing what we can do. And I think of the people in Selma and the suffering they did. I think of the lessons of Selma. I think of the lessons of the struggle for farm workers' rights, the lessons of the struggle for immigrant rights, the lessons of the struggle for women's rights, for disability rights, for LGBT rights. I think about the fast food movement across this country, advocating for fairness. And I think about the people who paid their dues, literally, to Cesar Chavez years before he got a contract. They were making a down payment on America's future. They were making a down payment on the notion that we can build a better America, a fairer America. And I need your help. The president needs your help to continue to realize this dream, because we are indeed a nation of dreamers. And I need your help to combat those who replace optimism with cynicism and who say government can't do anything. I need your help to rebut them. I need your help for those who are feeling hopeless, to understand that if they dream and work hard, that they too can realize what Alex Padilla realized. I need your help in all of these words, because in all of these efforts, because you know what, as the president said, a dreamer is more than a title. It's really, well, he didn't say this, but I'll say this. It's a damn good description of what it means to be an American. America is the son of a short order cook and a house cleaner who graduates from MIT. America is the young mother who can bond with her newborn because she has paid leave. America is the parent who can finally attend the PTA meeting or her child's ball game or her child's recital because she doesn't have to work 3 jobs anymore. America is the barista who spends her spare time going to higher ed and gets that degree and is now the manager of that place. America is the community in South Carolina where you can go to church or any place of worship and worship the God that you choose, knowing that you can go home safe and sound in this United States of America. America is the community organizer who says on this 50th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, we should be working to preserve and expand voting rights, not to suppress voting rights. America is the NALEO leadership who goes around this country reminding us that nuestro voto es nuestra voz. Cada día, cada mes, cada año. America is that fast food worker in cities like Seattle, Los Angeles, and elsewhere, where the minimum wage has been raised, and they no longer are saying, si se puede, they're saying, logramos. America is the worker, like Victor, who simply wants to be a taxpayer, but couldn't be that because he couldn't get health insurance, but now he has it. America is the undocumented immigrant from Guatemala who adjusted his status, enlisted in the United States Armed Forces, fought in the Gulf War, made the ultimate sacrifice, and got his citizenship posthumously. America is the 23-year-old boy, young adult that I met, who spent 21 of his 23 years here in the United States, has graduated with honors from high school, wants to continue his education, continues to dream, calls this his home, and with your help, I am confident will soon be able to say, yo soy ciudadano americano. Yo soy mexicano americano. Yo soy dominicano americano. That's what we need. That's the America that we need. America needs to realize its biggest promise. And so what I'm here to ask you to do is to continue to do what you've been doing, but to pick up your game even more, because we need to live our lives with the fierce urgency of now. For me, it's 571 days till the weekend. Your weekend may not come for longer, and if it's 900 days, then it's 900 days till the weekend. We got a lot of unfinished business. We've made a ton of progress, but I have seen in studying history and working in these jobs that the moral arc of the universe bends toward those who seek to expand opportunity, whether it's the opportunity to vote, the opportunity to worship as you please, the opportunity to work, the opportunity to live free from discrimination. And it does not bend on its own. We need to bend it together. We need to do what John Lewis said when his parents asked him, "What are you doing getting arrested down there?" And he said, "I'm causing good trouble." We need to cause good trouble on behalf of working families. We need to cause good trouble on behalf of those who are trying to build a better America. We need to cause good trouble so that we can indeed live up to our true ideals as a nation. We need to continue dreaming. And so let's not stop dreaming. I haven't. And you know what? As I mentioned earlier, this is the 41st anniversary this month for me of my father's passing. And you know what? My mom got real sick in 1974. And I promised them that we would continue to live life with a sense of urgency. And we all need that because so many people are still living in the shadows. And you know that because you're getting them out of the shadows. And I need you to continue to do that. We need to continue to be working together. We need to continue to bend that arc. And we need to do it together. Because you know what? There are folks out there who think that, if you blow out your neighbor's candle, it'll make your candle shine brighter. That's not what my parents taught me. That's not what your parents taught you. We work together. We all succeed only when we all succeed as a nation. Let's succeed together. Thank you very much.